Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Etang santang etang panitang sabba sankara samato sabbhobati patinissaggo tanhakkayo virago nirodho nibbānang. This is peaceful, this is excellent, namely the stilling of all the preparations, the relinquishments of all the craving, and the cessation, extinction. Today I am going to discuss with you very important Dhamma points, few Dhamma points. Basically, for the initial comment, I would like to choose two Dhamma facts preached by the Buddha. In Pali, they are called Hiri and Ottappa. You must have heard these words before. These two Dhamma facts, Hiri and Ottappa, they go together. They always go together. And even the Buddha has preached these two Dhamma facts together. First of all, let us consider what are these two Dhamma facts. What is Hiri and what is Ottappa? The particular Dhamma, the Pali term Hiri, it stands for the moral shame or the disgust towards misbehavior. But when we focus our attention towards the word shame, it means that once a person has done something wrong, as a repentance, repenting on what has done by a particular person, there comes the shame. But in Buddhist context, this particular concept is somewhat different. Buddha says, shame is this, or the Hiri is this. When we have a particular sense of disgust, even before committing a misbehavior, or before violating the moral principles, to which we call the moral transgression, sometimes we feel a disgust towards that. And that particular quality, the disgust, prevents us from engaging in that. So this is basically the Hiri. And when we focus our attention to the Ottappa, to which we call literally the moral fear, or the fear to engage in misbehavior. This particular word, the moral fear, has a wide spectrum of meaning. That means when a person is about to engage in a particular misbehavior, he will think about the consequences of this particular act. Having thought on that, he might refrain from doing that. These are the basic idea of Hiri and Ottappa. So let us consider these two concepts taught in Buddhism with an example. I think we can, when we focus our attention towards the commentary of the Buddha, there's a beautiful simile drawn by the Buddha. This simile itself describes the very essence of these two words, Hiri and Ottappa. Okay, Dhamma friends, imagine that there is a metal bar, to be called a bar made of metal or iron. At the one end of this metal bar, at the one end of this metal bar, the body excrements have been smeared. That means it is very disgusting. And in the other end, people have heated it until it becomes red hot. So, when a person is to touch one end of this metal bar, where the body excrements are smeared, he will definitely feel disgust to touch them, because by doing so, his very body will be tainted, will be corrupted with the effect of this body excrement, to which we call the feces. And on the other hand, if the same person is to touch the other end of the metal bar, which is being heated until it becomes red hot, definitely he will fear to touch it, because he knows that by touching it, his hand will get burned. So likewise, the particular end which is smeared by the body excrement is like the hiri, because the person feels disgust to touch it. And on the other hand, the other end of this metal bar is like the end which is being heated until it is red hot. So out of fear, he will not touch it. So this is a very beautiful example. Okay, when we come to the practical society, let me tell you a small story. It will tell you how important this hiri and ottappa, the moral shame and the moral fear, to our day-to-day life. This particular story was told by a renowned monk from Sri Lanka. He's a very renowned monk, reputed monk in Sri Lanka and abroad. Once a particular group of people, a group of Sri Lankans who are living abroad, they invited this monk to preach Dhamma in that country. So, accepting that invitation, he went to this country and having preached the Dhamma, the other day, one particular family invited him for the morning meal at their home, at their house, at their place. Then, after partaking the meal, the lady of that house, the mother of that house, made a small request from that bhikkhu. What is that request? She said, "Bhante, can you please have a word with my daughter? Because she's having a problem, a very serious problem." Then this venerable monk agreed. Then he went to meet that particular daughter, the girl. Then she came and she bowed down and respected that venerable monk. And this venerable monk asked from this daughter or this girl, "What is your problem?" Then she said, "Bhante, I have this problem. I am the elder daughter of this family and I have a younger brother. The freedom my brother enjoys in this country is never known to me. I don't have this freedom because he goes wherever he likes and he spends his time whenever he wants. He goes to the parties and all the night clubs and all the other social events, but I am not privileged to go there because my parents prevents me from going there, telling that it is against the culture. It is not the culture. So I am asking you a question, Venerable Sir. Am I such unfortunate girl? Am I such unfortunate soul? Not to have that luxury, the luxury my brother enjoys." So this is a very interesting question solved by this Venerable Sir. So the Venerable Sir told me that the reply he gave. He said that he had told this girl, "Daughter, you have to understand this very clearly. You know that the people treasure things because they are valuable. If you don't feel that something is not valuable, then there's no need of treasuring it. There's no need of protecting it. Okay? Although you are living in this foreign country, you are from Sri Lanka. You are from a very rich culture. So you are nourished and nurtured from this culture. So in our culture, girls, especially the ladies, are respected. They have a dignity in their society. They have a particular set of rules of behavior. That is a part of our culture. They are not, these rules and customs are there to protect their lives, to protect the respect or the integrity of these particular ladies. So that is why your parents are not allowing you to mingle with all these social ethics of this Western society, because that goes against our ethics. So because you are so valuable, that is why they are protecting you that much. Therefore, don't think that you are that unfortunate. Okay, I'll tell you an example that Venerable Sir said to this girl. Okay, did you see that how I came to this house? When I came into this house, your parents paid me respect. They arranged me a separate seat with a white cloth on that. And they asked respectfully me to have a seat. And they offered me some food very respectfully. And they invited me to talk to you very respectfully. But what do you think, daughter? When another average man comes to your home or the place, do your parents behave the same way? No. They don't respect that particular person the way they respected me. Therefore, what is the difference between them and myself? Because I am a Buddhist monk and they have a respect to me according to our Sinhalese culture, the Sri Lankan culture. And they don't behave in front of me the way they behave in front of the others. So there's a particular difference. What is the reason for this? The reason itself is they consider that I am a person to be revered. And I am a person to be respected. In the same way, daughter, they think that you being a Sri Lankan girl, you being a lady from Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan culture, you are a person to be protected. You are a person with value. That is why they are protecting you. If you are not such a not valuable person, then they will not protect you that way. So this is a very good example how to apply this hiri and ottappa, the moral shame and moral fear, to our day-to-day life, especially the society, being the people who are living abroad, born in Sri Lanka. So this is one fact that I want to emphasize, Dhamma friends. And there's another thing I want to emphasize. And there's another important concept in Buddhist teaching called gratitude, to which we call Katanyuta. In Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha preaches a particular statement like this: Katanyu katavedi puggalo dullabo lokasmin. Monks, the people who are grateful, are very rare in this world. So let us consider what is this katanyu, what is this gratefulness. Okay, again the Buddha says these two people are very rare in this world. Which two people? Who are they? A person who is to do a kindness, and also a person who is to be grateful for that kindness. So we have to remember. So this is not a mere statement, mere preaching by the Buddha, dear Dhamma friends. By saying so, the Buddha wanted us to think not merely that this gratitude is a very good concept, but also he wanted us to treasure the people who practice this gratitude, and also treasure the people who carry on this particular quality with them. And also, he wanted us to become such a noble person who practice the gratitude. Okay, when we consider the etymological meaning of this word in Pali, the katanyu, what is the literal meaning of this word katanyu? Katanyu means a person, a particular sense of knowledge of what you have done. Kata means you have done. Nyu in Pali, the particular root says to know. That means this kind of concept gratitude comes with mindfulness. Because if you can remember better those people who have helped you in this process of life, then only you can pay the gratitude. So this is also very important. That means the mindfulness and gratitude, they go hand in hand. Let me relate another story pertaining to this gratitude. So this is in this particular story, Buddha. We find this story in the commentary. Okay, but this story resembles, it exemplifies the real sense of gratitude. Dhamma friends, when we want to practice the gratitude, this particular concept should come with wisdom, not without wisdom. If you are to practice gratitude without wisdom, then it will not remain beneficial to you and the society. Okay, the example is this. Okay, just imagine there's a person who wanted to cross over a river. So what does he do? He collects all the branches, the leaves and all the woods from the forest, and he bind them together to make a raft. After making the raft, he put on it on the river, and with the help of his hands and legs, however, he managed to cross over the river. Having crossed over the river, what does he do? He might think that, okay, this particular raft helped me a lot. Therefore, in gratitude, in reciprocal gratitude, what should I do? I should take it on my back, or I should hold it on my head and go. What do you think, monks? Will it be a good thing or a sensible thing to do? Then the monks replied, no, Bhante, no, master. Then again the Buddha asked, okay, what do you think? What is the most wise thing to do with that raft? Okay, imagine that person, having crossed over the river, he thinks another way. He thinks that, yes, this raft helped me a lot to cross over the river. But the best thing that I can do to pay the gratitude towards this is to drag it to a land, a safe place, or keep it in the river bound to a particular place, enabling another person to make use of it. Because having taken it on my back won't help another. So these are two perspectives. These are two approaches to the same incident by a wise man and an ignorant man. Therefore, Dhamma friends, remember, when you are practicing gratitude, this gratitude should come with wisdom. And one small thing, but very important thing I want to share with you, especially with the children who are living living abroad and also who are living in this country. Children, the Buddha says there are two people in this world who are very difficult to repay the debts that you owe. Who are they? They are your mother and father. In other words, your parents. The Buddha draws a very beautiful simile to explain this. This comes in the Matru Pitru Guna Sutra. The Buddha says, imagine, bhikkhus, when a person, imagine there's a man who keeps his mother on his left shoulder and the father on his other shoulder. And if he were to walk 100 years, keeping their parents on both shoulders, feeding them, massaging them, anointing them, and doing all the work to look after them. And imagine, monks, that these parents were to do all they pour their body excrements along with this son's body, making some particular sense of disgust. But still, this son is walking, keeping his parents on his shoulders. 100 years, not a single year, but 100 years. But even by doing so, Buddha says, that particular person cannot repay the debt he owed to their parents. And also, if he were to place their parents on the best sovereignty of the world, the highest kingship of the world, giving all the 7 treasures to them, that itself will not be enough to repay the doubt they owe. And also the Buddha says, if you really want to repay the particular debt that you owe to your parents, what should you do? What should you do? So the Buddha says, you have to inculcate these 4 qualities in your parents. What are they? Saddha, Sila, Chaga and Panya. Saddha is conviction. Saddha is the faith. Sila is a virtue. Chaga is a generosity. Panya is the wisdom. That means, Dhamma friends, imagine that your parents are not with saddha, not with faith towards the triple gem, then you can help them inculcate this particular quality within them. And imagine, they are not virtuous people. Your parents are not virtuous. Then you can help them to inculcate the virtue, to become virtuous person. And also imagine that your parents are stingy. Then you can help them to become generous people. And imagine that they are ignorant. Then you can help them to become wise people. So, to help them in these four concepts, in these four qualities, first of all, you should be a good person. You should be of these four qualities first. Then only you can help them, inculcate them within them. So this is the beauty of gratitude. This is the best way you can pay the gratitude towards your mother and father. The Buddha says, if you can cultivate these four things, which will pave the way towards the Nibbana, that particular person is the one who has paid all the dues, all the debts to their parents in full. So this is very important concept. And also, especially the children, remember, if you really want to be grateful towards your teachers, then what is the best thing you can do? The best thing is not giving them presents, not taking them out, giving them money or any other valuable things. No. The best thing is to learn what they teach well and become good citizens one fine day. So that is the best way to repay to your teachers in gratitude. All these two qualities, to these two qualities, Dhamma friends, are very important. So we discussed what is hiri and what is ottappa. And we discussed what is gratitude. So all these three things, they go together. That is why I chose to discuss these things with you. And also, it is not enough us to just to read about these things. And we have all the sources, especially the Buddhist sources, to be aware of these things. But if you don't practice, even to a certain extent, these things, there's no value of learning these things. So Buddha compares such a person. It's like a particular person who take care of cattle, but still he doesn't get any value. He doesn't get any fruit from this cattle. It's like a cattle keeper who doesn't benefit because only the owner of this cattle, he's the person who benefits from this cattle. Therefore, Dhamma friends, when you are practicing Buddhism, you have to become owner of these good qualities, not just caretakers of these qualities. This is the thing that I want to emphasize through this Dhamma sermon. So, and also, you might wonder why these hiri and ottappa are mentioned by the Buddha as controlling powers of the world. Sometimes it's called the Deva Dhamma. And once the Buddha called them the bright controllers, bright Dhammas of the world. The main reason is, Dhamma friends, it says it provides the basis for the sila, the virtue. We know in the Buddhist soteriological path, the path starts from sila and it goes past samadhi and it ends in wisdom. Sila, samadhi and panya is a gradual step that we have to treat if you really want to reach the Nibbana. Therefore, to start with sila, especially the Buddha says, you have to inculcate these two qualities within you. What are they? The hiri and ottappa, along with gratitude or reciprocal gratitude, the best way that we can practice it. Therefore, if the hiri and ottappa and this gratitude provide the basis for the sila, then one can start his journey to this in this Buddhist path. The Buddha says this sansara is very long. You can't show the beginning or the end of this world, this samsara, the circle of existence. So Buddha says, Anamataggoyang bhikkave sansaro pubbhakotina panyayati. Bhikkave, the monks, this sansara itself, you cannot point out this is the starting and this is the end. It is endless. So, therefore, what we can do is this. We can start our journey to the journey of getting rid of this samsara. To search for a way out of this samsara. This is the essence of Buddhism. Once a person asks from the Buddha, what is Buddhism? What is your teaching? Then the Buddha says, my teaching is, it circles around only two things. What is that? The suffering and the cessation of suffering. The problems and the solution, in the simplest terms. So that is why, and also, Dhamma friends, you have to understand the rarity of this opportunity you have gotten. That means, how rare is to become a human? How rare is to embrace Buddhism? How rare is to become a Buddhist monk, especially as far as I am concerned? And in your case, how rare to become a Buddhist among all the other non-Buddhist people? So, only the Buddhism has taught a way out of this suffering. And all the other religions are there to make your life good. But none of them teach you. None of them teach you how to get out of this problem. So, only the Buddhism says that. That is why one of the authors said, Buddhism is the boldest optimism ever proclaimed to this world. So that particular statement itself resembles the value of Buddhism. So with that, I think you can understand what the Buddha taught. So what the Buddha taught is to make your life on the basis of the sila or the virtue. Having started from the virtue, then you have to go to the mindfulness. You cannot achieve the mindfulness without having virtue well established. Once you are competent with sila and the mindfulness, it leads to you towards the wisdom. That is a gradual path. That is a gradual path preached by the Buddha. So with that, I think we can conclude this sermon. Having said these three important teachings of the Buddha, what are they? The moral shame, the moral dread, and the gratitude. So these three things resemble together to make a person's, these three things circle around together to make a person's life a better life in this human society. So with that, let me relate a particular Sanskrit shloka which encircles this teaching of the Buddha. It is not preached by a Buddhist monk, but still it has the essence of Buddha's teaching. It says, Ratrau yata mega ganandakare vidyushana darsheti prakasham. What does that mean? Ratrau yata mega ganandakare vidyushana darsheti prakasham. Buddhanu bhavena tata kadachil lokasya punyeshu matishanasyat. What does that mean? Ratrau yata mega ganandakare. In a very dark night. It's a very dark night. Ratrau yata mega ganandaka vidyuchana darsheti prakasham. When you see a light of a lightning, it's in a flash, it comes and goes in a split of the second, in a small time, in a very short duration of time. Only we see that particular light. Just like, following that example, Buddha says, even a person's mind will be bent towards virtue. Buddhanu bhavena tata kadachil. With the power of the Buddha's teaching, one's mind gets bent towards the virtue. That much rare is this opportunity. Therefore, Dhamma friends think that you have been born as a human being with all your body organs without any defect. You can see clearly, you can hear clearly, you can work from your hands and legs, you can walk wherever you want. You have all these opportunities, you have all these luxuries, but still what are you waiting for without starting your journey towards the Nibbana? towards the emancipation, towards the final liberation. I think this is the essence of Buddhism. If you were asked by another person, what is the essence of Buddhism? Then this is the answer you can give. So the emancipation or liberation is the culmination of Buddha's teaching. So again, let me tell you, when the Buddha wanted us to become a virtuous person, in this human world, the Buddha simply preached without focusing your attention to very serious virtues. Then as layman, what you can do is, you can simply protect the 5 precepts. Okay, when you research upon all the evil things done by the people in this world, they can be the murders, they can be sexual misconduct, they can be trafficking of drugs, or they can be trading of weapons, and they can be slaughter and selling meat or fish. All these bad things, all these unwholesome things. If you put all these things together in one umbrella term, the Buddha says, all these misbehavior can be summarized under 5 things. What are they? The 5 precepts. Starting from Pāṇātipātā Veramani Sikkāpadang Samadhiyāmi. I train to abstain from execution of animals. And Adinnādāna Veramani Sikkāpadang Samadhiyāmi. I train to abstain from taking what does not belong to me. And also the Kāme Sumicchāchāra Veramani Sikkāpadang Samadhiyāmi. I train to abstain from sexual misconduct. And also the Musāvādā Veramani Sikkāpadang Samadhiyāmi. I train to abstain from false speech. And the Suramere Majjapama Dattana Veramani Sikkāpadang Samadhiyāmi. I train to abstain from taking intoxicated fermented substances which are extracted from either flower or fruit, which cause infatuation and heedlessness. So all these 5 precepts, they summarize the virtue, the human virtue, the ethics of this world. So people have failed to realize that all the good things comes along with this, the protecting of the 5 precepts. And all the bad things you come across can be categorized under the violation of these 5 precepts. I think with that, you can have a broad idea about what the sila is and what the samadhi. Then if you have protected that sila or the virtue to a certain extent, then you can start meditation. Meditation is of 2 wings. What are they? The mindfulness meditation and the insight meditation. You can have a better knowledge of these 2 meditation. If you can just read, there's a invaluable book called Visuddhimagga, The Path to Liberation. Sometimes Buddhist scholars call it is just a summary of all Buddhism. And in this book, it describes what is mindfulness meditation and what is insight meditation. Normally, the Buddha instructs the disciple to start your meditative journey from the samatha meditation, the mindfulness meditation. In mindfulness meditation, it helps to concentrate your mind. And having concentrated your mind, then you can focus this power of mind towards the insight, towards the seeing things as they are. That is the insight meditation. Having completed these 2 steps, what are they? The virtue and the meditation, the sila and samadhi, the mindfulness. Then the Buddha says, then he is the person who goes from ignorance to wisdom. So this Buddhist path is like a journey. We start from sila, and having cultivated the sila, when we go past the mindfulness, it is the virtuous person who can start the mindfulness meditation. It is the person with mindfulness who can start the wisdom, who can start developing the wisdom. And wisdom is a teaching the Buddha wants us to develop. This is a concept. It is the phenomena that you want to develop to reach the emancipation. And also, if you summarize the entire Buddhism under 3 words, we can say the 3 characteristics of Buddhism. What are they? Anicca, Dukkha and Anatta. Anicca is the impermanence, Dukkha is the suffering, and the impermanence is the anicca, dukkha and anatta. Anatta is a soullessness. So with that, I think these three qualities are called three characteristics of Buddhism. These are the three qualities confined to Buddhism. None of the other religions or other philosophies teach these three qualities to you. Therefore, when all the other religious teachers, when they were preaching their followers, this world is permanent, not impermanent. And this world is full of luxuries and happiness, not the suffering. And there is a particular thing called soul, which transmigrates from one birth to another. Then having that, but Buddha says, going upstream, he proclaimed to the world, no, that is not true. This world is anicca, this world is impermanent. And this world is dukkha, it is suffering. Once the Buddha said, dukkhe patitthato loko, the world is placed, it is established on dukkha. And also, there is no soul, the Buddha says, which transmigrates from one birth to another. So having said that, it is a revolutionary statement made by the Buddha, dispelling all the doubts of the worldlings and refuting all the debates, the baseless debates roused by the other religious teachers. The Buddha says these are the truths of the world. These are the characteristics of the world. So having said that, this discriminates. This is the distinction of the Buddhism from the other philosophies. Therefore, Dhamma friends, you have to think about yourself. If you are a Buddhist, although if you are not a born Buddhist, imagine that you had the opportunity to embrace Buddhism even later on. You are so fortunate. And having opportunity to hear the Dhamma, you are so fortunate. And having opportunity to practice the Dhamma, you are so fortunate. Having opportunity to read the Dhamma, you are so fortunate. But Buddha says, although you are so fortunate to being able to be born as a Buddhist, if you are fortunate to read the Dhamma, if you are fortunate to hear the Dhamma, but if you are not practicing the Dhamma, then you are not fortunate to enjoy these pleasures, the final liberation, the extinction and the cessation from this world. So having said that, I think now you can understand the value of these Buddhist teachings and the value of having the moral shame, the value of having the moral fear, and the value of being grateful to other people. So with this, I think you can teach these things to others also. In Buddhism, we call the Dhammadana. So Dhammadana has been praised by the Buddha as the foremost out of all the generosity one can practice. Imagine, Dhamma friends, if you can preach even a 4-line verse to one of your relatives or one of your children pertaining to Dhamma, teaching them Dhamma, establishing them in Dhamma, then it is the highest gift, the highest generosity that you can perform, you can exhibit towards others. So instead of giving material things to others, from this moment onwards, train yourself to read some Dhamma, to hear Dhamma sermons. Dhamma friends, don't think that you are the only people who are listening to Dhamma. Even being Buddhist monks, we also listen to Dhamma. We also listen to the preachings of the other Buddhist monks, because hearing the Dhamma is a very important thing in our journey towards the emancipation. And not only the Buddhist monks can preach Dhamma, being layman, having learned the Dhamma the proper way, you can teach Dhamma. As usually that we see how even some young teachers and some old parents, they go to Dhamma school to teach Dhamma, expecting nothing in return as charity. What a valuable contribution. What a valuable, important thing to do. What a beautiful thing to do. What a important, meritorious deed to perform. So these things, I think you can start from the very childhood. You can start from the very childhood. Don't wait until you become at the age of 60 or 65 to practice Buddhism. Because there's a notion like that. In childhood, you cannot read the teachings of the Buddha. This is a very wrong notion. Still, you can start reading about the Buddha's teachings. When you become a middle-aged man or when you are in your youth, is the best age to practice the Dhamma. Don't forget even to spend about 5 to 10 minutes meditating during your routine work of the day. Because meditation, you can't reserve a particular time for meditation in your day-to-day life, because you don't know, you never know when you will be busy and when you will be having a leisure time. Therefore, as a practice, you can add these things to your life. And also, never violate the 5 precepts. As far as you are not violating the 5 precepts, then remember, Dhamma friends, there's nothing will be stopping you towards the Buddha's path. Nothing will stop you in flourishing in your life. And these good fruits of your good karma will ripe one fine day. Maybe in this life itself, and one fine day in your future births. So therefore, these things you have to recall, you have to remember again and again. These things has to be recurred in your mind. Okay. Then I told you about the Dhamma Dahana. This is not the preaching of Dhamma is a Dhamma Dahana. You can write something in Dhamma. If you can write a particular letter when you are exchanging emails, especially in this modern technology, when you are writing letters to others, when you are messaging to another from your mobile phone, right? Even you can write a Dhamma fact to one of your friends as a first thing that you do in your day. So these are things also Dhammadana. If you write a Dhamma book, even a small book, that is also Dhammadana. But all these things should be done as charity, not expecting a minute thing in return. So this is the dana, this is the beauty of the dana, this is the beauty of morality. So this is the beauty of generosity. I think with that, you have the understanding about what are the 3 characteristics of Buddhism, and what are the 5 precepts, and what are the instances where you can indulge in moral transgression, and how you can stop yourself, how you can prevent yourself by using the teachings which I told you in this very sermon. What are they? The moral shame and the moral fear and being grateful. These 3 things will always protect you. Sometimes people refrain from doing evil, seeing the consequences of their wrongdoings. Especially these consequences are twofold. One consequence is to repent within. Imagine that if you are done with an unwholesome deed, after doing it, you repent within. Then there's a particular pain recurring within yourself, giving so much torment to you, giving so much suffering to you. That is one aspect. And also people refrain from doing evil, knowing the consequences. What are the other consequences? People might fear whether others will scold you. The others will criticize you, especially the wise people. When wise people are criticizing another, it is very hard to bear. And also, what are the other legal consequences? If you kill people, if you steal something, if you engage in sexual misconduct, if you tell false speech, all these things will be a subject to legal punishments. Fearing the legal punishment, sometimes people, they refrain from engaging all these things. So with that, I think having understood the consequences also, people can refrain from that. And the person who is interested in securing their integrity, inert integrity, internal integrity, having to protect the integrity, one would refrain from doing all these unwholesome things. So these are the very reasons that why people should not engage in unwholesome deeds. Having said that, I think from this sermon, from the very initial moment up to this now, I think you have a good idea now about what are the things I emphasized. So basically, although I emphasize these three things, what are they? Moral shame, moral fear, and the gratitude. So you should know that all these three things are the basis of the virtue. And you have to start from the virtue, and you have to go to the mindfulness, and you have to end your journey with the wisdom. Having said that, I think we are not going to talk further with the time's constraints. I think having held all these good virtues in your mind, be determined to lead this life fruitful. And don't worry about the past. Past is gone. Don't worry too much about the future. It has not come yet. The best thing you can do is to live the present moment. It will ease your restraint. It will ease your life to a certain extent. I think with that, having said that, I think we can wind up this Dhamma sermon. I wish you all the good health and long life, and may the Noble Triple Gem bless you. The sponsors of this Dhamma sermon have done a great merit to organize, to sponsor a Dhamma Dahana like this. I think it is our duty to remember their names. So this, as I informed by the others, the sponsors of this Dhamma Dahana or the Dhamma sermon are Mr. and Mrs. Punchibanda Aluvihare, Raminda, Divya and Tikiri. I think remembering them, we wish may the blessings of the Noble Dhamma Dahana and the Triple Gem, all these blessings will protect their family. And also, they want to recall their relatives and all the friends. And they wanted to bestow good health, peace of mind and well-being towards them. Wishing the attainment of Nirvana. Especially, they mention Mrs. Malini Aluvihare Abekon, who passed away recently, and other members of the family who are no more. Also, they wanted to transfer these blessings, these merits to all the COVID-19 victims who suffered death, who succumbed to death. And to conclude this Dhamma sermon, let us make an important wish. Let us put together all the merits we have accumulated through listening to this Dhamma. And let us, first of all, transfer this merit to all the relatives who are dead and gone. And also, let us wish good company in this very life, with good friends, with noble friends, and also in our future births, some good companionship, which will make our life fruitful. So let us preach these two Pali Gathas together. Idamme ñāti nang hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Idamme ñāti nang hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Idamme ñāti nang hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Imina punya kammena māme bhala samāgamo. Satan samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiya.
The sponsors of this Dhamma sermon are Mr. and Mrs. Punchibanda Aluvihare, Raminda, Divya and Tikiri. May the blessings of this noble Dhamma Dana and the Triple Gem protect their family, relatives and all friends, and bestow good health, peace of mind and well-being. Wishing the attainment of Nirvana to Mrs. Malini Aluvihare Abekon, who passed away recently, and other members of the family who are no more. Also, the COVID-19 victims. May the Venerable Pandit Thera, who so kindly delivered this sermon, attain the supreme bliss of Nirvana.